In 2015, I inherited 3,000 acres of untouched Colorado wilderness, rolling hills, thick forests, streams flowing into a nearby reservoir. The land was a gift from the past, bought in the 1950s, passed down with one rule: keep it safe. I wasn't a rancher or developer, just a software engineer from Denver with a vision. I built a small cabin, started carving out an eco-retreat, hiking trails, bird-watching spots, a campground for nature lovers. It was a dream funded by savings and a few grants. But the land sat next to a gated community, a fancy enclave of million-dollar homes circling a private lake system. The HOA running it acted like they owned the whole county. Trouble started when surveyors showed up on my property line. They claimed they were checking boundaries for a new fence. I let it go, thinking it was routine. Months later, a letter arrived from a development company saying they'd bought 1,500 acres of my land for a golf course. Bought? I hadn't sold anything. I stormed to the county clerk's office and found a forged deed transfer, claiming I'd sold half my land for $100,000. Pennies compared to its value. My signature was on it, but it wasn't mine. Someone had lifted it from an old road access waiver I'd signed years back. The HOA had connections, whispers of bribes to clerks to push the paperwork through without checks. I was livid. I hired a lawyer, a property dispute specialist, and we sued for fraud, forgery, and trespass. The HOA had deep pockets, their legal team a machine of delays and countersuits, accusing me of encroaching on their land. They even got an injunction to start clearing my acres while the case dragged on. Bulldozers ripped through trees I'd planted, tearing up my retreat. I watched from my cabin helpless, as my dream was shredded. The court fight lasted 2 years. I sank every cent into it. Credit cards maxed, car sold, savings gone. Discovery uncovered emails from the HOA's president, a real estate tycoon, boasting about grabbing my land to expand their lake system. They wanted to dam my streams for new waterfront lots. But the judge, cozy with the HOA's inner circle, ruled against me on a technicality. The forged deed was an error, and undoing the sale would hurt the HOA too much. I lost 1,500 acres. My eco-retreat was gone, replaced by fairways and condos. Broke and bitter, I was left with half my land. But in the legal slog, we found a crack in their armor. The HOA's lake, a $12 million man-made reservoir with docks and a clubhouse, wasn't fully theirs. Back in the 1970s, when the community was built, the original developers tapped aquifers under my land. An easement was granted for water access, but it came with conditions. Maintenance agreements the HOA had ignored for decades, diverting streams without approval. Digging deeper, we learned the lake's main water source was a spring on my remaining land. Old maps showed it started on my property, and the HOA's dam relied on an expired permit from 2005. They'd skipped renewals to avoid environmental scrutiny their polluted runoff wouldn't pass. The lawyer laid it out. I owned the water rights. The spring fed their lake. I could reclaim those rights and redirect the water, or sell them. That's when the plan took shape. I couldn't undo the land theft, but I could drain their lake. I filed to revoke the easement. The HOA fought back, but the evidence was airtight. Public records, geological surveys, testimony from locals who knew the land's history. The court agreed. The easement was void. With the rights secured, I approached a rival developer, a company focused on sustainable water systems. They were building a solar farm nearby and needed water for cooling. I sold them exclusive rights to the spring for $5 million plus royalties, with a condition: they'd install pumps to divert the flow away from the HOA's lake. The deal was signed, permits cleared, all legal. The day the pump started, I stood on a hill watching. The lake's levels dropped slowly, steadily. The HOA scrambled, calling emergency meetings, threatening lawsuits. But my sale was ironclad, backed by the court. Their sparkling reservoir turned to mud, docks stranded, fish dying off. Property values tanked. Residents turned on the HOA, filing lawsuits for mismanagement. The president stepped down, facing criminal charges for the forgery. The community unraveled. Homes foreclosed, the clubhouse shuttered. I used the $5 million to buy back chunks of my stolen land at auction, turning them into a wildlife sanctuary. The lake bed, now dry, was reclaimed by nature, grasses and wildflowers taking root. They stole my land illegally. I dried their lake legally. Balance restored. Let's rewind to how it began. The first sign of trouble was that community barbecue in 2014, hosted by the HOA to welcome neighbors. I showed up in jeans, a beer in hand, surrounded by polo shirts and wine glasses. The president approached, all smiles and firm handshakes, pitching a partnership to develop my land. I brushed it off, saying I liked it wild. The smile didn't reach his eyes. That was the first warning. When the surveyors came, I should have acted, but I was naive, thinking it was just bureaucracy. The sale notice hit like a freight train. I called the development company, got the forged deed faxed over, my name, my signature. But I'd been in Europe that week, emails proving it. The lawyer took the case, initially for free, smelling blood. The first court date was chaos. The HOA's attorney, a sharp-talking suit, claimed the sale was legit, calling my forgery accusations baseless. We presented a forensics report showing the signature was doctored. The judge barely blinked, demanding more proof. Discovery was a grind. Nights spent combing documents in my cabin, fueled by coffee and fury. One email stood out. The president urging his board to get creative with my land. Creative meant criminal. Meanwhile, the bulldozers rolled in. I chained myself to a tree in protest, got arrested for trespassing on my own land. Local news ran the story. David versus Goliath. Small donations came in, easing the legal bills. But the trial was brutal. 5 days. A key witness, an ex-HOA employee, testified the president ordered the fake signature. The HOA's lawyer tore him apart, painting him as a disgruntled thief. The jury deadlocked, mistrial. The second trial went worse. The judge ruled for the HOA, citing progress on the development. The appeal stretched on, hopeless. Then the water angle emerged. A hydrologist mapped the aquifers, confirming the spring on my land fed 70% of their lake. The 1972 easement required inspections the HOA had skipped. Revoking it was straightforward. Water Court, specialized for these disputes, saw the clear breach. Old maps and a local's testimony sealed it. The easement was gone. Selling the rights was smooth. The rival company's CEO was eager, offering $5 million plus 10% of water usage fees. The contract included eco-friendly clauses, no overpumping, clean filtration. Installation took 3 months. I invited reporters to the pump activation. As valves turned, water flowed away from the lake. Residents gathered at the shore, watching their paradise shrink. The HOA's president called that night screaming about war. I told him he'd started it by stealing my land. They filed for injunctions, nuisance, interference, all denied. The lake dropped 2 feet a day. By month 2, it was a swamp, boats grounded, bacteria thriving, mosquitoes bred, property taxes spiked for cleanup efforts. The residents' class action suit gutted the HOA. Discovery exposed more. The president had siphoned dues for personal luxuries. Bankruptcy followed. I bid anonymously at auctions, reclaiming 800 acres. Those acres became a sanctuary. Native plants, restored wetlands, trails rebuilt. I hired locals displaced by the golf course, hosted eco-festivals, gave proceeds to charities. The president fled only to be arrested later, assets seized. The community, once a glittering enclave, turned ghost town. My land thrives. Visitors come from across the country. I wrote a book, spoke at conferences, turned pain into purpose. The dry lake bed is now a meadow, proof that nature wins when you fight smart. Going back, the land was more than dirt, it was a legacy. Childhood summers were spent camping there, learning to fish, track deer, respect the wild. The instruction to protect it burned deep. Losing half felt like betrayal. Depression hit hard, too much whiskey, too many nights alone. The lawyer's words pulled me back. Fight smart, not hard. The water discovery was gold. The hydrologist's report showed the spring pumped 2 million gallons daily, enough to keep their lake alive. Now it was mine to redirect. Negotiating the sale was simple. The buyer saw value in sustainable water. I invested the payout, solar panels for the cabin, a conservation trust. Some residents apologized, one even baked pies, admitting they didn't know the HOA's game. Others vandalized my fence. Cameras caught them. More wins in court. Today, the land is a sanctuary. Kids visit, learning the same lessons I did. The HOA's lake is a memory, their empire dust. Justice wasn't sweet. It was clear, like the streams now flowing free. The legal battles were a slog. The first lawsuit filed in county court listed fraud, conversion, quiet title. The HOA denied it all, countersuing for slander. Discovery traced a $1,000 bribe to a clerk, but the judge called it irrelevant. The trial had a whistleblower, fired by the HOA, admitting the forgery orders. The defense discredited him, hung jury, then a loss. The water case was cleaner. Geological maps from the 1950s, a local's sworn statement. The easement fell apart. The sale contract was meticulous, no environmental harm, strict monitoring. The diversion day was surreal, engineers in hard hats, me with a toast to justice. The pumps hummed, meters ticked. The HOA's lawsuits flopped. Ecological shifts followed. Fish relocated, birds adapted, my wetlands flourished. Personal growth came too. Met a biologist during surveys, married her, started a family. The land became our home. The fallout spread. Media covered it, interviews, a documentary. The president's indictment was national news. I bought back land, planted trees, opened a nature center. Local economy shifted. Ecotourism replaced luxury estates. Small businesses thrived. This story is a warning. If an HOA wrongs you, dig into records, find leverage. I found a spring, you might find your own. Revenge isn't about destruction, it's about balance. They took my land, I took their water. Legally, always legally. The barbecue in 2014 was the first clue. I stood out, jeans in a sea of khakis. The HOA's pitch to develop was smooth, but I said no. Their eyes said they wouldn't forget. Surveyors came months later, then the forged deed. The lawyer spotted the fraud instantly. Timestamps proved I was abroad. Court was a circus, their attorney smug, our evidence ignored. Bulldozers rolled while I fought, arrested for protecting my own trees. The water fight was different. The hydrologist, an immigrant who'd faced HOA snubs, mapped the spring's path. Water court was no nonsense. Facts won. The sale to the solar company was a handshake and a signature. Pumps went live and the lake died. Residents' fury turned inward. Their lawsuits crushed the HOA. I reclaimed land, built trails, hired locals. The president's arrest was icing, caught fleeing with a suitcase of cash. Years later, the land is alive. Wildlife, visitors, my kids running free. The lakebed blooms with wildflowers. I honored the legacy, fought smart, won clean. They broke the law. I used it. That's the difference.